for joining this conversation. And I would like to quickly remind or just tell people what this is all about. Um, Straight handball talk is a conversation between two people that know each other, that at some point either have been teammates, competitors, partners, or anything in between, especially in USA. But ultimately, they are connected forever thanks to this Olympic sport of handball. This is actually I consider it as the price, the reward, the priceless reward that we all get from these connections, aside from the competition that we get and we all enjoy. But to me, being able to make friendships all over the world because of this sport
Yeah,
has just, it's the greatest reward of all time.
yeah, and I agree. I agree. It's very unique, at least what we live here in the US. But yeah, I agree.
So, and those who don't know Danilo, Danilo is a head coach of the current U.S. national champions, San Francisco Cal Heat. Danilo and I were both born in a country that doesn't exist anymore, that is Yugoslavia. So I know you moved to Switzerland at early age, but to start this conversation, I wanted to find out how much of a Balkan is there in you, and when did you move to Switzerland?
Uh, there is a bit of Balkan in me, but not much. I was 3 years old when I moved. I was born in Belgrade, but my father was a professional soccer player. He played for Partizan Belgrade, and he just had a transfer to Switzerland, to one of the largest clubs in Switzerland, and we decided to make the move there. So I pretty much grew up in Switzerland. I speak better French than I speak Serbo-Croatian. But yeah, I think I told that to you once. My heart is probably, my emotional side is probably rooted in Balkans, but I would say the way I act and think is probably more Swiss. So I inherited pretty much both cultures along the way.
Well, I guess that's a good thing. It's less explosiveness in
Yeah,
reaction.
yeah.
So tell me, your dad was a professional soccer player. Obviously, those who don't know, Partizan was one of the greatest soccer clubs in Yugoslavia at that time. So how in the world did you get started in handball?
It's a pretty interesting, because I started with soccer when I was really young. I was like 8, 9 years old, so I followed on my dad's footsteps. And when I was around, I would say 14, 15, I just I had enough of soccer. I don't know. I just got tired of it, and I always liked watching handball games. I think the first game I watched was in 98 or 97. I think it was European Championship, I think 98. Yugoslavia was actually playing against Sweden, and I really fell in love with the sport. And I was 14, and I just started playing. There was a handball court just next to my house, and I just bought a ball and I started shooting by myself. And I said, yeah, let me join the club, and joined a little handball club in my city in the western Switzerland. And super welcoming club. They didn't have any youth team, so I had to play with the first team immediately.
That's
So
good.
that was pretty good. But yeah, it was a pretty surprising start, I would say, on my end. Yeah.
That's a good story. And what position did you play, now that we're talking about your
So my main position was always left wing. I think I played left wing until I reached even the highest level point, at Bern in semi-professional. But then I transitioned a little bit to center back, but that was more towards the end, especially when I was a coach player. But left wing, yeah.
I guess that's a natural transition. I mean, I did the same way. I mean, I got involved in handball because of a neighbor, and of course they put me on the left wing because usually all the backcourts are taken by the guys who have experience and a lot taller.
Yeah, yeah.
And they didn't want to run, obviously, from the wing position that much, and they couldn't jump, so they put me in there. And my experience was like, okay, I just wait and I get the ball and I just have to score all the time. But the problem is, like, the waiting for someone to pass you the ball was a disaster. I had no patience. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I either have to be there somewhere where I have the ball in my hand or I'm out.
Yeah, they call it sometimes. One of my former teammates call it the left wing position or right wing, the trash can. Pretty much, you throw anything you can to the wing and you let him do whatever he can do. So
Yeah, it's not. I mean, anyone who plays well in those positions, they really have a focused mind that, you know, they can stay there and wait patiently and not get upset. They just are neutral. So you give them the ball at the high level, and they demand from themselves to be highly executional in that situation. But again, you got to have patience for those 60 minutes to get the ball.
Yeah, a lot of running as well.
And a lot of riding, of course. Yeah. So anyway, so in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, you moved to San Francisco, and then you joined Cal Heat at that time. So
yeah, correct.
I don't know much about, you know, the initial integration of you within the club, but tell me a little bit more. What were the biggest challenges for you settling in?
Yeah, so I left Switzerland 2015, spent nearly 30 years there, and we didn't come here for handball. We just came here initially for sabbatical for a year, and you know, the more time I spent here, the more I wanted to stay, and I realized I think quickly upon my arrival that there was a club here, Cal Heat, and the club was pretty far. I was based in the city, and the club was in Fremont, so like taking the metro or the car around 45, 50 minutes at least. So pretty interesting, but I said, yeah, I'm going to give it a try. And yeah, I was surprised. I mean, it was a pretty, I would say, well-organized club when I joined, relatively small compared to what is it today. But yeah, it's really, it's been pretty welcoming, I would say, the team and everyone. It was a much smaller community, as I mentioned, but yeah, it took me, I think I quickly settled in. You know, I tried to give immediately a lot of my coaching background, you know, into it. But, you know, there was a coach already, so I pretty much wanted to let the coach do his thing, you know, and somehow the club got in contact with me later to take over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know of Cal Heat for a long time, obviously, and to me, they've always had some sort of an identity in the United States as a club. But I don't think they've never really had a winning mentality, in my opinion. But you brought this to them and made them believe, and especially in the last 3 years, you ultimately made them succeed. I mean, I think you planted that seed, which culminated in the last 2 U.S. Nationals in the men division, elite division, reaching the finals. I mean, I know the first time when you guys played against us, I think of it as the biggest problem that you had is the semifinal game against Nyack. And that was an epic game, which I was at the desk doing the desk job, which I hate. I despise. One thing that I despise in handball is being on the desk, because to me, it is the most frustrating job. And it's just like, I cannot do it. And I know I had support behind me, helping me all the time, but it was so stressed because I wanted to watch the game. I wanted to enjoy the game. So I think, to me, that game that you guys played, it was amazing. It just drained you a little bit. So what do you remember about that finals? I mean, not the semifinal, the finals between us.
I think the one thing I remember, and you point out on it, is I think there was a big difference between that final and the final from last year. Was I think we were mentally and physically drained out. We initially, our objective was to go top 4, but maybe fight for the bronze. That was really, we put everything on that. And then we started a tournament, beating Chicago, who beat us like 3 times in the season. And then we arrive against Nyack. We beat Nyack, and that game, I think, finished at 7, 8 p.m., you know, and we celebrated like the same way we celebrated a year ago. That was pretty much our title. And, you know, the day after, obviously you wanna keep trying for more, but you realize at some point, I think the guys realized that it was not it was not really possible really to challenge you guys. I think you were on a complete different mindset. For you, it was pretty much normal to achieve that. You were preparing for that game while we were, I mean, that game was like the cherry on the cake, right? And you had also the players. I think it's two very different finals. And I think I would call it more of a Cinderella story, the way we achieved, the final versus a completely different, final in 2019. I mean, you guys were, it was, I think there was no chance. I think the game lasted 5 minutes, and you just had, I think, the experience, the players, and you were ready. So I think there was not much to discuss around it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we obviously knew that because we've been in a situation like that when you have a very heavy semifinals. Next day, no matter how much you want it, it's like, it's not like we're professional players that we have our legs ready like this. So we were aware of that stuff. But again, it was a moment of, in my view, of the breakthrough of what Cal Heat is establishing and how you guys are taking every game seriously and the focus on making every year a better year, which brings me to last year where you guys won in a quite fun and interesting finals. I personally, watching from the bench, I remember watching my guys play and looking at them. They were doing what they usually do their thing, right? They thought they had everything under control, but the energy of the game, I never, even though I was in the bench watching, like it didn't feel right from my perspective. And then at the last 7-8 minutes, when our guys started missing those easy shots, which I thought could have really finished the game, I knew it. I mean, I knew it. The last 5 minutes, I said, okay, this is going to be one of those games where you have no idea what's going to happen, and few seconds are going to change everything. So I was aware that this is going to be some weird thing. And I say this because I think many people who have been in finals and in these situations many years, there is a sense, there is an intangible when you realize that something is not right. Even you're up, something is not right. Then you guys capitalize on all the mistakes that we did in those minutes, and then especially on the mental ones, and deservedly won the title because the focus is what matters in those minutes. And the little tiny things that you captured in those last 2-3 minutes changed everything. So I saw it from my bench perspective. I want to know, how did you see it from your bench perspective?
Yeah, I'll have a question before I answer this one. Why did you spend most of the time on the bench?
Well, it's very simple. I'm stopping. Even my guys ask me that, but it's my time to stop playing. I mean, and on top of it all, aside from that, if Stefan didn't have a good game, I would have gotten in the game.
Great.
But Stefan was playing out of his mind, and to me, having him, he's been with us since he was 18 or 19. I always call him, he's going to always be our 19-year-old center back, and he's the future of our club. And I was super happy what he was doing. He had the game of his life. So I will never, ever put myself in that situation at 42, 43 years old, take away a young guy who was doing everything right. Now, it was not his fault that we lost, but that's why I was sitting on the bench.
Interesting. No, he played, I think he played an amazing game. And I think if I didn't change the last, detail in defense to prevent him maybe in those last 5 minutes from keeping on the momentum, we probably would have lost. That game was really interesting because, as I mentioned before, I think the way we arrived into that game, it was completely different. The Cinderella story was kind of still there, but not to the same extent, but we knew where we wanted to be. There was measured celebration after the semifinal. Even though, winning against LA is always nice, but
it's live and learn. I know those days.
But it was different. The morning when we woke up, the guys had they were preparing for that game, and a few guys, and without being offensive, were like, well, let's go, we can win this one, and we want to get it. And when we prepared, there was not much motivational talk to have with them. they knew exactly what they wanted to be. I think we had this probably best assembly of Calhit players so far, from what I can hear from old members of the club. And yeah, and then the game, the game was interesting because I think you had 2-3 times 3 goals difference, and there was always the moment where you could have had that 4th goal, right? Which probably, if our goalie didn't do an amazing job, I think George was shooting, he had completely open shot, which he usually never misses. Then you have Benji, who had a pretty, I would say, not great day. And we, as you say, we capitalized on that, and we obviously had a few lucky moments, great moments, and somehow it worked out. And yeah, I'm happy that, we are still far away from New York City in terms of, we won so many titles, but yeah, you're a great aspiration for us, and we want to get there one day. Who knows?
Well, what I think the fact that, you were not satisfied with us being second, and I think that shows in players, and I think that's what builds a club mentality, that winning mentality that I brought up earlier. It's, it starts from the top, and if people are there with time. I mean, I think time is a crucial factor in here. If you establish a foundation and some sort of a system, and then you fit in the right players in this country, in this league, you should, not you, but any club should be a contender for anything.
Absolutely.
Because it's very simple in that way. You build an identity that is mentally strong, and you never know. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but the games will become always competitive. Absolutely. And that's what I care about the most. Always cared about it the most.
Yeah.
So let's jump from us clubs, which we can talk for 10 days, but let's talk about USA Team Handball. Obviously, their mission is to develop, promote, educate, and grow the sport of team handball at all levels in the United States. And their job is to enable United States athletes to achieve sustained competitive excellence. And more importantly, they need to make them win medals in international and Olympic competition. You've been here for 5 years. How do you think they have done in the last 5 years? And what do you think they should be doing to actually be successful with this mission?
Should I grab a coffee so we can spend some time?
Or a 6-pack, better.
Okay. I think there are many different layers to observe. Definitely there has been an evolution since I arrived. Maybe just because I got more exposed to it, I don't know. But I would say that there has been, at some layers, a positive evolution. At some other layers, just nothing. I think I'll start probably from the most important aspect, which hasn't evolved, is youth. I think to me, it's very interesting that we have a league here where no team, and we have something, I think, here at Calhit, but it's still not to the level you would expect it to be, and we have really a youth team part of the club. I think that's something essential that fuels quantity of players and also at some point quality of players. And not having that as really the number one priority for me is very, or number two, whatever, but it's very surprising. And I think that's, as long as this is not going to be fixed in a way, I think the US is always going to have trouble. I think they will rely mostly on us, foreign Europeans who just come with a background from Europe, build it here, and win a couple things, but nothing. And you can see it in the national team. The national team, even though those are dual citizens, 90%, if not more of them, had their handball education in Europe. I think that can work in the short, mid-term, and probably that's the current recipe for success for the USA Team Handball. But I think in the long term, it's just a bit delusional. But I don't know. I think there has been some progress, as I said, some positive ones. Like there is more exposure, visibility. I think Barry Sif, the new CEO, just joined recently. I think he's trying to really push for that. So I would say on that aspect, there is definitely more exposure towards the IHF and stuff like that. More like Verizon just came as a sponsor. So something's happening on that front. But I think what we also miss a lot is this handball knowledge. People like you, me, and there are a few of them currently in USA Team Handball, but we need more people who know the sport and know what to do, or you know how to grow it. And I think that's just lacking right now, and it's going to be pretty difficult, I think, to get faster on track without those.
Well, I mean, the first part you mentioned about the youth teams and the youth levels within the club system, critical, obviously, for any development of handball. Here they call it grassroots handball, but I call it an extension or building the foundation of a club. I mean, it has to be rooted within the club system. And if any federation, I believe in Europe, I mean, they don't have this problem, but I remember in Kosovo, at one point, if a club didn't have a youth team, they couldn't compete in the top division, no matter how many good players they have. So it was like, okay, plus they would not get funding from the federation. So if you show that you have a youth team in cadets and another level, then you get funding. And it's the funding only requires to pay the coaches, it requires to pay the facility and the medical doctor and whatnot. Not a lot, but you entice a club to do what you want to happen 10 years from now. And you guys are doing that. And I think, honestly, I'm not jealous, but I feel that I wish we could do that here. I know we tried many years, but it didn't work in the way that I want to see it within the club system. Yeah, I would go to a school and I would go to a New York City department program. We'd do all this stuff and then poof, everything would disappear. So if you don't build it within the club system, I think it's always going to be, oh, look what we did. Oh, we don't have it anymore. So I wish we could do something like this. I think you guys as leaders in that aspect somehow should take charge from the USA Team Handball perspective and just make sure that help every other club in the country to do it the way you did it. They can have their own ways, but and then USA Team Handball responsibility is to fund any club who's actually doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's critical. It's you know, we are talking about the Olympics 2028. They were announced 3 years ago. If this was started, let's say 5-6 years ago, then you have your team, right? I have the feeling it's already a bit late right now to start that for 228, but we'll see. You know, it's
maybe Zion Williams joins. You never know. things don't work. They ban him in the NBA for all that stuff that he's doing, and he's going to look for another opportunity.
Yeah. That's another debate we can have.
that's of course a joke, because I think the whole approach is like, I mean, I love the idea of these sort of athletes to join U.S. Handball. I love it because yes, if they joined when they were 12, let's say 12, not even 8, but 12, and they have these predisposition and they stick to handball, hell yeah, no doubt. But nobody's going to do that without feeling that they belong to something more important, which is to me a very strong club of situation, family.
Yeah, I agree. And something that I'm pretty interested in, I think we never talked about this. You know, you took over New York, was like 2007, you said?
2007.
Yeah. So I'm really interested how was life in New York when you arrived as the president or took over, and how it is right now, because I think right now it's pretty much the benchmark for many teams, I think. So how did that, you know, ascent?
Well, you know, it was, I went to a practice a few times, and there were 2, 3 people, 4 people sitting down talking, and these are the older guys. One of them is Richie. Richie is our soul and heart, who kept this club alive since 80s and just been around and, you know, trying to hustle just to grab who plays handball to be a part of it. So when I joined in, there were like very few people. And then during games, there would be a little bit more, like 8, 9 people, but it was just not a big group of people. So when I decided to join, I talked to Richie. I said, Richie, I mean, I want to come play handball and not just play basketball, because I can play basketball other places. I mean, I love basketball. I think I'm actually better in basketball than handball. So, but I want to do this. And he said, oh, well, it's going to be difficult. I said, I know it's going to be difficult, but let me try. So like anyone else, I started, you know, promoting at that time. using online, creating a website, little small website, reaching out to people, posting on forums, buying new jerseys, get some local sponsors, get us new warm-ups, like really make us look like a unity. And then slowly start developing a playing system, because we had no playing system, and it was all for yourself. And that time I really wanted us to feel like, okay, let's build a system that we can play and identify as who we are. And then of course we had players, like certain players at that time, like Ivan was our goalkeeper, Zelki was our left wing, was amazing, and then Joel had joined us later, Vlad had joined us later. So all of a sudden we built a foundation of people who want to understand handball the same way we grew up to play, which is play really hard and play with heart and stick to a system. And then many other people from all over the world joined, because I didn't want to create a situation where, like, oh, you form a group of Balkans and you run it that way. It doesn't work that way, especially in our city, and especially in big cities with so much diversity. So we kept bringing more and more people, and it didn't matter if you played handball well or not. If you played handball once in your life when you were a kid and you moved to New York, we wanted you come in. So we created that family environment, which then transferred to spending a lot more time outside the court for many people, creating these events and slowly, one step at a time, saying like, okay, well, we did this perfectly. We won nationals. We have a women's team. We won this, but winning is not necessarily a goal all the time. It's like, okay, what is the next achievement we can do to, one, elevate our status as a club, and two, what are the bigger goals that we can achieve? And then it was the main thing. It started in 2012, I believe. I went to London Olympics, and I went to talk to the IHF at that time to beg them to give us a wild card for Super Globe. Because at that time I thought we have no chance of competing against a Brazilian club. So I said it would be a great idea if you guys support North America and give us a wild card. I mean, we have such a interesting story, and it would be only good for handball. They said, oh, that's a good idea and whatnot, but we'll talk about it. Nothing happened for a year. And then I went to Spain, to a world championship in Spain. I met there with another person from IHF, and I pleaded my case again. I said, guys, it's really important. I promise you, it's just going to help us all. And then the guy from IHF said that, oh yeah, well, we're going to have a meeting and we're discussing the possibility of splitting up this was a long time ago, before the split even happened. So, I mean, at that time I was just pushing all these little things, because I knew if we don't actually have access to a bigger stage, we are just going to keep talking to ourselves, have fun as a little club, and not have actually the global opportunity to have people talk about it. Now, in all this time, obviously I was organizing the Big Apple International Tournament, which was the largest international handball tournament in USA, where we had all the greatest handball players in the planet to play in New York City during New Year's Eve. So that generated a tremendous interest around Europe, not here. Again, it was, we broadcasted the games twice during those 5 years on Eurosport, and we generated millions of viewerships on TV. So we just built this platform of a recognized club, an amateur club that is doing these things. And all the top legends were supporting this movement, this growth. And I just wished at that time a USA Team Handball foundation or federation was there to capitalize on that interest, on the build-up, and all the things that we were doing to elevate it to another level. Didn't happen. Of course, things after 5 years, when resources, finances dry out, and it's just hard to push. I mean, we could have done it, but it was to the point where it was very exhausting. I mean, putting your own resources, and then certain big sponsors from Germany had to pull out. It was tough, and I felt bad because it was a really good foundation to build from it. But anyway, so that passed, and then finally IHF said, why don't you go to Pan American Games Club Championship and try to compete against the Brazilians and Argentines. I said, I really want to do that. I'm trying to do this every year, but I get the invitation 2 weeks before the tournament happens, either in Brazil or Argentina. I said, how the hell am I going to buy the tickets and prepare for this stuff? And then finally, IHF provided, I think, $1 million grant or sponsorship to the Pan American Federation through Qatar. And then 1 year, they organized this Pan American Club Championship. They let us know 6 months in advance. And that's where we actually went. We applied, we got the guys to come in, and we competed. And we competed really well against everyone. I mean, we beat the Paraguayans, the Uruguayans, and Chilean teams. We just lost to the Brazil and Argentina teams, and without training. I mean, we did zero training whatsoever. So these are the steps of always trying to achieve that one extra goal or level up to the point where, okay, what do we do now? I mean, we really wanted to show everyone that we can do it. If we can do it, any other club can do it. You just have to be committed. So it was constantly trying to get to another step higher. And it just required a lot of dedication, work, and just stick with it.
I mean, yeah, it's what you guys did is, and I wanted to ask you, you answered my question about the Big Apple tournament. It's a pity we don't have these events anymore. I think that was quite unique, and I think right now everybody would be sold behind it. And it's a pity you didn't get the support. And I mean, it's interesting. You've gone through all these steps, and I always wanted to ask you that is like, out of all these titles, events that you played, what was the one that sticks with you the most?
I take everything, personally, and I want to make it happen. But when it's done, I'm thinking, okay, let's do the next one a little bit better. So I commit to every single one of the events that I've been in. When I'm in the game, when I'm playing, I'm just thinking about the game and every second about the game. When I'm organizing, I'm thinking about every single person that's involved and how to get every piece to really work together to make the best event possible. So very two different mentalities in that sense. When I'm in the game, I am your competitor. I am your person you have to beat, and I'm looking to do the same way. But from the outside, I'm very open and wide, available to work with every single person. So either way, every event that we've done, it meant different thing because it was a first of every single thing we've done as a club. Yeah. So it felt good, but then, okay, now what? What do we do next? Because it's done, and now what do we do? Because Super Globe, if we ever go back again next time as a club, I would die not to go there. And this is the first tournament in my life that I haven't won a game, like in a tournament. But understandably why. But to get to that level, you have to do so many more things. To get to the level where you have actually chance to win one game, which brings me to the USA team handball and the national team that got the wild card for 2025 to 2027 in World Championships. But how do we win a game in that championship? It's not just being there, right? Especially given to you. How do we build a team that wins there?
So it's a very interesting question. I think there is so many steps that need to go until the moment you reach the 225, 26 or whatever, even if they get the wild card now in Egypt to go, right? Because there are two wild card spots, and I think the US can get one.
Yeah.
But what is the point? Like, obviously, it's a great marketing tool, PR going there, US is there, but what do you... And at the end is the question which only probably USA Team Handball and Robert Hedin can answer is like, what's the objective going there? If the objective is purely results, you just bring the best. Whoever has the US passport, you bring the best guys. And then you hope to achieve. Which again reminds me of the Pan Ams that recently happened, where I think the US really brought the best they could get. And obviously, there was no chance against Argentina, very little against Chile. And I was really surprised that they even couldn't make it, I think they finished 6th, right?
I think so, because they beat Cuba in the preliminary, but then they lost to them for 5th place. Yeah.
which again, I think is finishing sixth with the team they had is not a good result. Uh, with the team they had, I would have really expected them to be in the number 4 spot. Again, they had a tough group. Obviously, the draw isn't easy. But I think a great example which shows development is Chile. Chile is a great, under Matteo Garalda's leadership, they have really evolved from a very niche, small market country to a pretty, I would say, good. I think they challenge Argentina and Brazil now easily.
They play beautiful handball, actually. That championship, it was really fun to watch them play.
Yeah. So I think there are these different benchmarks where I think the US should really look at, Chile, Japan. Obviously, it's always easy to look at Germany, Spain, France, but I don't think it's applicable. But how can you look at these markets who have managed to do it, I think the right way. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I think, if they can manage to win a game, I think that's going to be real progress, I think.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like, that's what I think about it. Okay. You got a wild card and it's phenomenal because it is an opportunity to promote. But then when you get there, you got to have something to win. But that time will come hopefully soon. So to move on, like, you've been a proponent of having clear guidelines on competition, and you work hard with a few other guys to make that as an established rule book for all the elite competitions and for competition in general. And I think it's a very important thing to have someone who pushes on that stuff. However, do you think that you've been successful enough that, and I've been a part of a couple of times, that all the work is done, the rules are there, the playbook is there, and then for some reason there are loopholes that make a rule book null? And I'm thinking, how is that possible? When during the year everyone worked, everyone was fine, and then all of a sudden in the last second it just changed. So is it because, I don't know this very much, I didn't explore much, is it because we are a amateur entity within the national governing body, which is run by USOC, and we have to act by Ted Stevens Act, that anytime someone comes up with an idea that, hey, you're not letting amateur players play in, and whatever you put in the rule book is not worth it?
Look, you have been part of those conversations. I think, to me, it doesn't have really a lot to do with amateur. You can be an amateur player but have a professional mentality, I think, and approach things in a professional and structured way. That was the first, the main thing that struck me the first time I was at nationals, back in 2017. And already back then there was a team who had 2-3 names that I never saw on the roster, but I didn't care because I had not much time to expose myself. But I saw the next year the same thing happened, and with finally some consequences.
Yeah.
And then the third year, when it was even more obvious than the first 2 years before, nothing happened. And obviously I think you and I and a few other people, we are pushing for these competition things to be straight and clear. And I think if you follow that rule book, it's the simplest thing in the world. You mentioned it. The problem is there are loopholes, like any rule book has, but it's interesting that every time we talk about that, we are always leaning on the soft side. We are never leaning on the conservative side. And I think that's my big problem, because especially for amateur organization who take so much effort, time, and money, to go through all these processes, traveling and everything. The cost of just participating to nationals is immense. And you come there and something like that happens to me, and it's even, justice is not made, then you're just feeling like something's been wrong here. I'm just sitting at the wrong place. I'm wasting my time. And obviously it's great when you win, you easily forget it, but I tend not to forget those things. And that's probably something that strikes me a lot, and maybe always been a bit of my weakness. But I cannot just stand those kind of injustice. I think there are loopholes today. We're trying to fix them. I think the rule book is better now since 2 years, but we still have probably another 20-25% of adjustments to do to make it, I would say, perfect. But again, step by step.
It's like you said, it's not even about winning, but if you have a club that does the right thing or does things on their own, and they don't even have to rely on the rule book. Because for me, as someone who runs a club, I will never ask any player to come from outside to play here if they haven't been a part of the club for a long period of time. Yes, they might move to a different state because of work reason, family reason, but they do come occasionally to practice in another tournament, and they don't move clubs. They don't move teams. They've been with us for decades. So to me, to go ask people from outside just to join me in domestic competition is a no-no. So I personally, from that position, it's like, why wouldn't others do it? I know that you need players, but think about it. You have opportunities to bring those players, create that team feeling, the club element, and not come in and ruin the other people's work. And again, it's not about winning, because at this point that has not affected the ultimate goal, but just don't do it. Do the right thing. Build your club from from a simple foundation.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think there is a lot of blame on that, but on the other end as well, when you express those concerns and you just see that nothing's happening, you ask yourself, right? Why am I in this for, right? And I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, I think it's great and that many teams join those kind of discussions, and I think we are not the only ones really speaking about it. But I think the more people can be vocal about it, the better. I think this is we need this.
Yeah. It's happening one step at a time. I think as long as you keep sticking with it, and we have Patrick as well and Brian, we should not have any more deep issues that like what we used to have. So I want to share another thing with you. This is like a little bit more of a controversial thing. It's not even controversial, but I know a lot of people don't know this, but both you, Cal Heat, and New York City, we bid it for a Super Globe qualifier this year. And I know I was upset, very upset, when I found out that you guys had already bid it last year for the event, and I had no idea. And I kept asking Barry for information, like, oh, so when are they going to send the bid package? And for a week, I didn't get a response. And then after 2 weeks, I sent it again, because it was what, I don't know, it was February, or I don't know, it was just beginning of the year. And then he said, oh yeah, Cal Heat has bid it, and we're supporting that bid. It's a good bid, and we're going to support that. I'm like, what? I'm like, I really got upset, because it wasn't because you or someone else bid it. It's because I was not informed. And last year, a year before, we organized a very successful event, fully self-funded, without any support of USA Team Handball. And maybe this year I was not even considering it, right? Because it's okay for someone else to host it. But I felt in a way betrayed, because I was not told the whole information. And of course, when that happens, I said, you know what? A bid is a bid, which means there needs to be other bids. So I'm gonna send my bid, which ultimately won the right to host the Super Globe, because the only reason is because I was hosting it at a USOC training camp center, which is equipped to do this stuff for a much cheaper version. So I wanna share this. I mean, we've shared these emails back and forth where we said things to each other, and think people got involved, and people should know this, that there are times that we're friends, but there are times that there are issues that we argue. Uh, Ultimately, we solved it in the best way possible. But I want to know, how do you feel about the whole situation, how it happened, and your side of the story, by the way.
Sure, I would say, yeah, I think it's interesting because I think we felt it as a, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding at the end or everything, but we also had the feeling of being upset because obviously we had starting point was the year before where, we wanted you or anyone in US to host it, and we never even thought about participating because we didn't think we had the right to be there because you guys won. And if you remember, after the nationals we lost, we reached out to you and you said, if you guys are going to South America, if there is a second spot, we would be going. If not, like, let us know. And there were, I think, even some talks that, we didn't even know if you could host it or it could be us. But at the end of the day, you had the best version. And we from a moral standpoint, we're supportive. Obviously, we didn't put money into it. You invested, and I think all the credit goes to you for that. But from a moral standpoint, we were there. We were supportive, and we even wanted to go there. And I think we were. I think there was a bit of disappointment here, and that's not maybe on you. It's we thought it was a 1 week event, and take for us taking a week and then another 3-4 days at nationals was a bit difficult. So we said that if it's a week event, there's no chance, and then we learned later that it was a 3-day event, and also we kind of felt, oh wait, they haven't told us, because a 3-day event we would have gone for sure, and we felt a little bit the same way you felt, a little bit. You used the word before, but I can't remember.
Betrayed.
But betrayed, kind of. Even that word is very powerful.
It is
too powerful for that, but that's the feeling we got. But nothing upsetting, and we said, look, anyway, it's not our right to be there. What we have to do, and I told my guys, is like, if you want to be, a contender to these people, like you have to beat them. There is no other way. And we won. And I think the moment we won, we also mentioned that there was an interest from us to do it, and somehow, I don't know, the communication got lost. I don't know if it was my fault or if it was just by default. So I'll just assume it was my fault on that. And we started things on our own way. Our objective wasn't really to hide things from you. Actually, it was not mine, but was more about, hey, we deserve it right now. We want it. We want to organize it. And I think I mentioned that to you in an email, and maybe that message never got there. Was like, for me, I never have any problem you applying for it. I think where the problem lies to me, and maybe it's the problem in the system again, is that I think this is where we should have a clear system where USA Team Handball asks whoever wants to organize that event to bid. And then USA Team Handball says, okay, I have club A, B, C, D. And then to us, club B is going to get full support. You can all apply, but club B gets full support. This is where a bit, I think, it wasn't really something pointing out to you or to someone. I think the system was there was no process at all, which created, us. There was a little bit of competition between us and I think we felt betrayed, you felt betrayed. And at the end of the day, and I told you in one of my email, it was like, even though we exchanged some pretty strong words, and when I hope we have the chance to meet again, so I can
we will
have a coffee and talk that with you. But when people I don't like or don't care tell me something, I just don't care, and I move on. But when people, I gave respect to some people and we have those harsh conversations, it stick with me. My parents were visiting when that happened, and I just felt shitty that day, because I think you were wrong, and then I said, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's wrong, etc. And I just said, shit, and I wrote you that email saying, maybe I disagree with what you said, but I respect you, and if you get it, great, we will be there, and if we get it, you should come as well. And that's I learned from that moment, and that's openly, I want to keep that communication line not open only, but reinforced. So yeah. That's just me.
Well, I love these moments, right? I love these moments of truth, like where people do things they believe they're doing the right thing. It's perfectly fine, and I always support that. And again, I really personally had no intention maybe organizing it again this year, because I knew how much it cost and how much of a toll it was for me personally. But that part that happened and misunderstanding, miscommunication is because to me, it felt like, okay, I've been reaching out, didn't get a response. And the final response really close to the date was like, oh yes, someone else has it and someone's just going to take it, which brings me down to the system. A year before, there was a system. The letter was sent to a bunch of clubs by Mike and said, hey, who wants to organize it?
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, but it was also, I had to respond in 4 days because that was sent also late. So I'm like, 4 days. I'm like, and I looked at the how much money needs to be. So I had to do everything in 4 days. And I said, after 4 days, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'll figure out how I'm going to do it afterwards. So that's how I got it. It was really not, if I had to think too much, the money involved, and especially because it was supposed to be a 8-day event. But then two teams, Jamaica was supposed to send a team, Puerto Rico was supposed to send a team. So that would have made 5 teams altogether. And that was becoming an 8-day event. And then all of a sudden, day after day, so many issues with clubs waiting till the last second, asking unreasonable things, to the point where, like, guys, you know what? Like, just come. You don't have a lot of money to spend. Just come if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And finally, we got stuck with 3 teams, and that minimized the event to altogether 5 days, 3 competition days and 2 days in and out. So I remember that part. It was not to the point where I wanted to be this way, but every day it was changing because a club was canceling, and then another club was saying, hey, I might come. So, and we really had no control. We were like, okay, just whoever wants to come, I'll just make sure that I have enough rooms for everyone. But leaving that last year aside, I mean, this year, of course, we both, I know you guys felt a hurt too, because what I said and how things developed, and you felt that I was encroaching in your right as winners to host. Obviously, to clear this out, has nothing to do with this. I just wanted to be notified and to have that right to say, okay, Khalid is doing it. Do I want to do it? No. Do I want to support them? Yes. Simple as that. But it's like when someone sort of hides something, it's like, that's how it felt. Now, obviously, we know the reason why it happened, and I'm glad we moved past it. And talking about this year, depending what the situation is happening, hopefully there will be a qualifier somewhere where people are going to go. But if not, I hope you guys as national champions will represent us if Super Globe happens.
Yeah, let's hope. That's again another thing. There's not much communication around it happening. I don't know if it's because there is nothing, but I think we all want to know. Obviously, we want to, the same way you earned it last year, we want to earn it this year. And if we can have a qualifier, no matter where it is, we would be happy to.
Yeah, hopefully it happens. I mean, we still have hope and time. So, tell me about National this year. I know you and us as a club, we're up for it. Now we just have to figure out where and when. What do you think?
So let's start with the when, because I think it's important. I think the question we have to ask ourselves is how much do we want that event, at what cost, right? And I think if the cost is to play it no matter what, at any point in time, then that when can happen even at Christmas this year.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm against it. I think that by September 30th, if we don't have, a national, because then October is a new season, Chicago tournament, etc. To me, there is no point killing 2 of our seasons, because even if you put nationals in November, who is going to travel to Chicago? Who is going to travel to Texas? And even our own Cal Cup in January, it's a bit. So in my opinion, it's if by September 30 we don't have anything, we should just call it quit and cancel the season, which again then asks a lot of questions after that, because where do we start from there? Like, I'm talking about Super Globe because I'm very emotional about that, because since we have no season, is it again the 2 of us, right, who are involved? And I think they should be, because if you don't have a season, we should start where we started after 1920. That's my opinion. But the problem is, you never know. Hopefully USA Team Handball follows that, and we don't have to remind them of that. But so that's on the when. So I know the date is booked for Detroit, August 7 and 9, but nobody knows. But the where, one of the ideas we were talking, you and me, was maybe, have a Final 4, Final 6, anywhere. Can be anywhere. Split the 3 divisions, men, women, elite, 3 locations. We have gyms available. Chicago has a great gym. Boston has a great gym. We have a good gym. Dallas.
Yeah.
And cheaper, much cheaper than renting this huge thing in Detroit. I don't know. I think if we really want to have nationals by September 30, there are solutions, and I hope we can find something. What do you think?
Well, look, I'm up for it. I think we're all dying to play. I mean, first to learn how to walk again, because being stuck at home for 2 months is not good for people at my age. So I think if we have enough time to at least get into some sort of a decent physical shape, anywhere would be fine. But I had a conversation with Vlado the other day, and he brought up something he actually didn't even cross my mind. He said, "What about going back to Myrtle Beach? Like, it's wide open, meaning the state is open, beaches are open, the facility was amazing, and even though I was like, oh, what, we were there for 3 years, and it's like it's kind of feels like it's a tournament, a regular tournament, but in this situation where again flights will be going in, they're cheap for most people, not for you guys, it's much difficult, but still possible, and that facility, I think for me, I haven't been in a facility as good as that one to host four courts. It was perfect. uh, so I was like, wow, Vlado, I thought we're never going to go back to Myrtle Beach again, but it is a possibility and a good
Yeah,
one.
and I think we should. It should be a. I mean, I know currently the conversation is a bit, in the oven, but I think we should really start engaging on that and presenting a couple options. And again, I think Myrtle Beach, I personally would have liked it to continue there just because of the facility, no
Yeah,
other reason. You have everything there. Our hotel is like 10-minute walking
yeah,
distance. I think we're in far as well. Um, what do we want more, right? I don't know Detroit. I'm sure they were up for something great, but the problem always for a handball player for me is flooring, right?
yeah,
See,
yeah.
what kind of flooring were they meant to bring there? If they were meant to bring the Gare floor or those kind of thing, yeah,
They will not bring 4 Gar floors guaranteed. I
no,
mean,
sure,
maybe
yeah,
one, yes, but the only form that usually these centers have is the snap locks. Those can be great if they're brand new, but if they're used, there's little wet. You can ice skate.
yeah. So Myrtle Beach would be ideal. Then I mean, we have options. That's the thing. We have options. We have Myrtle Beach, multiple location, one location, Final Four, Final Six, whatever. I think it's feasible. But if we always err on the side of caution, probably we'll never have it this year.
Yeah,
So
I know. I look, in the last 30 days, it feels like it's been 2 years and so much happened, right? Now I'm thinking next 30 days, everything can change back to normal. Like looking from the optimistic level, not looking at the aspect of what's happening, but just we got to be positive and at least prepare. I have no doubt any of these facilities, whether it's Myrtle Beach or any other with a lot of space, they need business, so they would give it to you for free if they allow people and team sports to compete. The city and the state will give you incentives to bring people. And I know South Carolina is a place that wants to have people on that beach during the summertime, so they will do anything to bring people in there. So it's an
yeah,
opportunity for someone to think about, hey, where can I get everything free? And then let's see. Another thing that I really want is for our U.S. national registration fee to be cut in half. I don't want to pay $1,000. I mean, it's too much, especially this time. So
you mean the entry fee for nationals?
yeah, yeah, $1,000 at this point, I think it's too much. So we got to think about the way to make it a little bit more this year. Maybe let's see what we talk about later on. But we used to pay $400 just 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's becoming really expensive, right? It's 1,000. Yeah, the first year when we started it was 750 when I started.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I remember 6 years ago it was 450, and if you pay early, it was a little bit cheaper. And think about it, our clubs that send 4 teams now in these championships, that's $4,000 at once, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a lot of money, and if you count also memberships and everything, I think our club contributions are easily on a yearly basis beyond 10K. So
Yeah, yeah.
so
So that's why if we get free facilities in one of these places, definitely support clubs with less money to pay, and then we can ignite our players, members, and at least have something. I'm sure people want to go to the beach. I mean, if everything clears up, we get a green light when it comes to dealing with this virus. But people would love to be on a beach.
yeah,
So that's my I didn't know about
yes,
this. I didn't think about this, but Vlado convinced me.
you should suggest it.
Yeah. So what are we're going to wrap it up because we had a nice, good 1 hour conversation. Is what are your expectations for next year if this year is completely washed out?
Team expectations, you mean, or?
Yeah, your team and your expectation. Are you going to stay in San Francisco? What are your plans, and what do you think Cal Heat is planning to do?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in SF. That's for sure. Hopefully, we can resume practice. Let's say in a normal way in September, October. I think from a Cal Heat standpoint, we are gonna try to remain where we are. Really at the top with you guys and Nayak. I think one of the things which started doing this year, and you would have experienced that already at nationals. We wanted to go with a bit of a younger team. I transitioned the team a little bit, uh, and next season was supposed to be even more. So the team is a bit different from the team you played, but
Yeah,
even though the core is there, but yeah, we are trying to. I want to change a little bit things. I we have played the same system for now 4 years, and we have new players now, younger, different mentality. So we want to play a bit of a different, more dynamic and modern handball next year. So yeah, we just want to be evolving as a club in a positive way, and hopefully, also our ladies team can follow. I think
yeah,
they've worked hard this year. So
yeah, which is growing fairly fast. Your women's team.
yeah, I hope they need the same click as we had, against Nyack 2 years ago. So
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
So what about you?
Well, yeah. First step is renewing the old guys like me. That's a key. Just like you, really trying to allow anyone who's younger to step up. I want people to step up and take ownership and take leadership and take direction and open for any sort of new ideas to renew this group of people. I mean, we have a great amount of talent still, and even at older age, we can still play in this league. But ultimately, you want to bring fresh blood and opportunity to other people. So that's ideally would be our goal. And again, ultimately the priceless element in here as we started is really to keep this family feeling together, to keep this club identity together. And it's not about the wins. We've had a long run, and it's great, but and sometimes it's a curse because all you're looking nothing but winning is acceptable for us, and
Yeah.
for some people is not a good feeling to live that way. But ultimately has to come to an end, and you got to do okay, we'll do the best we can until we reach the part where we feel confident of our performance. But when the older guys retire, there's supposed to be a new generation that brings a different vibe to
Yeah.
the club.
Let's hope we get a chance to do what we love really soon. So
Yeah,
I hope.
absolutely. Well, thank you, Danilo. This was fun. It's good talking to you and catching up on all the little things that people don't know about us, about our relationship. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, we were talking, and I think it's just maybe to, I hope we can have a chance if there is no season, maybe to play a friendly game. I mentioned that to you.
Yeah.
Be fun. I think in there any gym would help, as long as it has the handball dimensions. Yeah, if we can play that, my guys would be ready. I'm sure yours would be, and
Oh,
for fun.
absolutely. I think that would be fun. Well, we're up for it. I think summer is going to be free for most people.
Yeah. Let's hope. Let's hope.
All right, Danilo. Thank you again.
Have a nice day. Also, thank you, Bini.
You too. Take care.
Bye bye.